Hi, welcome. This is Andrew Holmes with Real Estate Live, heard every single week from 12 to 1. With me in the studio, we're excited to have Mr. Joe Mueller from the Tanis Group, and he is somebody who has built a pretty sizable REO business from the brokerage end of things. And today we want to kind of welcome him because it's always good to have people who are in the industry, not only who see it from the broker side of it, but who see it from the investor side, which is kind of from our side. Which is what I did was we switched. I kind of switched roles from being a real estate agent day to day to purely investing on our side. So, having said that, Joe, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Happy to be
Definitely.
here.
It's good that you took the time to kind of come out and talk about what does the general public do, because we were talking about it just before the show. Is a lot of times people feel that, oh my god, these REO brokers, they hog all the listings, and how do I get one of the listings? Is there a great big secret behind it? And that's kind of where I want to go down the line today. And Joe is also speaking at the Naperville RIA today. So he's doing one of our chapter meetings, talking specifically about REOs and HUD deals. So it'll be a fun next 2 or 3 hours. There'll be a rush, but it'll be a lot of fun. For anybody who is tuning in for the first time, we've been doing this show now. I think this is almost the third and a half to the fourth year. And every single week we talk about one thing and one thing only. How do you use real estate? How do you invest wisely? How do you invest safely? And then how do you still create returns that are abnormally high compared to what you can in the marketplace? Having said that, with any questions, with anytime you want to contribute, you can always call 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. And today, for all our callers that call in, the first 20 callers, we will give away the latest probate list that just came out. So that'll have about 900 or so probates. So if you would like to get that, call in at 847-303-5011, and it's 100% free. All you have to do is pick up the phone, call 847-303-5011. Having said that, Joe, let's go. So, Joe, where did you, briefly, where did you start? And then the transition into real estate investing from being a broker, because you're doing fairly well as a brokerage. So why don't you kind of start from there, and we'll just kind of take it up from there.
Well, I initially started actually as an investor. I was buying at the auction block in the six-county area of Chicago. Raised some private funds from friends and family, and through that process, I needed to figure out how I can get better evaluations done on these properties, because back then there was no, Zillow or no type of platform out there to really get my values straight. So aside from looking at the classified ads and driving around, I decided to get my license, and then eventually formed the brokerage back in 2003. And I had some relationships with some banks through the auction block. I met a couple guys that were flying out from different parts of the country to protect their interest and their second liens. Because as we know, when you go to foreclosure at the auction block, you lose your interest if you're anything but the first, if it's a first lien auction. And one guy in particular helped me out, took him out to lunch, and ended up with a couple REOs as a result. And it just kind of grew from there.
So good old kind of hard work, persistence, kind of starting out with a small little dream and just pursuing it, right?
Absolutely.
No secret really as such behind it, except hard work and persistence and a lot of frustration.
Lots of hard work, lots of long nights, lots of long days, but yeah, I got started, and yeah, there's no secret.
And
No secret.
the reason I reached out to you guys was that I did not know that you were actually investing. I just knew you guys were doing a lot of REOs. We had picked up some of the properties that you have through the banks, and that's kind of how. And then as we got talking, as I came out to see your presentation the other day, that's when I realized that you were investing. So that kind of creates another bond, especially for other people who are investing in the marketplace. So what do you say to that new person? Because a lot of times people will be driving down the road and they're, oh, well, it's radio. I hear this guy all the time, and there's all these things that can be done. We talk about wholesale deals, we talk about flips, we talk about cash flows. From your end as an agent, because you're still an active, very, very active agent, doing a lot of transactions, why start investing? Why not just sell a heck of a lot of properties, which you're doing, and just stay on that side of the equation? Why did you start investing personally?
Well, I think most brokers that are out there selling properties, they don't really establish their long-term goal. And in order to retire someday as a broker, I mean, the number one way would be to own property in my eyes and have cash flow coming in.
Okay, so stop. You made a
Yeah.
very good point. So you know what we always teach is we call people like yourself, an engineer, a doctor, we call them busy professionals. They make a good income, but now the question is not how much you make, how much you save, and how much do you invest, so that someday you can walk away from whatever you do. Would that be correct?
Very correct, yeah.
Okay, so it's no different for you. I mean, you might be an orthopedic surgeon, a roofer, a plumber, or whatever. It's just a way to make money. Hopefully, you're good at what you do, and then hopefully you invest well, so you have something to show for it in the future.
Correct.
Okay. What would your advice be for people who are starting? They say, "Oh my God, this sounds all great. What is the first place to look? How do they approach an REO?" Can you kind of shed some light on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say the first thing, as a brand new investor or somebody who's just getting started, you need to focus on what your goals are going to be. A lot of people get into real estate, because they see something on TV, where they're going to flip houses and they see these large numbers and big margins, but what they're not seeing is the commitment it takes and the amount of time and actually the amount of expenses that probably aren't documented on something like that. So you need to network with other investors. You need to start educating yourself at local REIAs like we're going to be doing later today. A lot of times there's properties and deals that can be passed back and forth at an event like that. But number one being, make sure it fits the model that you eventually want to develop. If you want to be a passive investor, then you're going to be looking at buy and hold opportunities. If you want to create yourself a day-to-day business or a day-to-day job, that's going to be more of something like a fix and flip type situation. So setting the goal, I think, up front is the key.
Okay, and then where do they turn? I mean, what I've always felt is that go local and invest local. That's been my big deal, because I like to touch, feel, see what the heck I'm doing rather than going in Florida. Not that there's no opportunity down there, it's just that I kind of want to know what it is. Any thoughts on that? Because what I've felt is that there's a lot of, I think I can say that, BNS in real estate, but that what I've always felt is that people should verify, right? Don't just believe what somebody says. Look at the fruit that a tree bears before you say, okay, it's a mango tree or it's a peach tree. If they're talking about peaches and you see kind of apples, there's something wrong. The inconsistencies don't add up. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I mean that's out there all the time. There's a lot of educational programs that are out there that can lead people down the wrong path potentially. But back to your original statement, investing local, I think staying in your own backyard is the simplest and most effective way, especially if you're first getting started, because you're going to know the areas, you're going to know the towns, the markets, you're going to know the values a little bit better. Where I can, if I could try to sell you a house in Florida right now and tell you that it's worth $150,000 and it could be really worth $75,000.
Sure. And so I want to kind of talk about a little bit about the opportunity in Chicago, because a lot of times the grass always seems greener on the other side. Well, let's invest in Detroit, let's do this, let's do that. My belief is that why not do something safe and invest in your own backyard? So that's kind of what I want to talk in the next segment. But for anybody that is listening to the show, to get the hottest list of probates that just came out, it's being offered for free for any of our listeners today. The number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. And it's only available for the first 20 listeners. So really briefly, I have a minute left. Let's go back and talk about the opportunities in Chicago. Talk about that a little bit. What are the opportunities?
Well, especially right now in this winter season we have here, I've seen more opportunities come up on not only on market and off market in the last few months that I've seen probably for the rest of last year in 2015. There's obviously a slump as far as buyers coming out there and picking up properties as opposed to like spring and summer when it's the most active times in the market. So definitely now's the time to get out there and put some boots on the ground and start looking at some properties and buying some cash flow homes or getting some houses to flip.
Okay, so basically you think that there's still an opportunity, because what I've felt is that in the Midwest, we're kind of a little bit of a lag behind the country in general, because of the way the judicial sales are done and all that stuff, that, in the South, up way north, like Northwest, up north, there's a lot of pockets that there's tons of opportunity. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So having said that, today we're having a conversation with Mr. Joe Mueller from Tanis Group. We will, for everybody that is on our email list, if you're not, call 847-303-5011 to get an update on the show. We'll send a recording of the show as well out to everybody. And we have the hottest list of deals, off-market deals, deals that are probate deals that just that just actually came out. And these are deals that nobody knows about. They're not REO deals. They're not deals in the MLS. To get your very own list, the number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. All you have to do is pick up the phone, be the first 20 callers, and it will be available to you 100% free. That's 847-303-5011, 847-303-5011. Hi guys, welcome back. This is Andrew Holmes with Real Estate Live. You're listening to us from 12 to 1 on AM 560 every single week, talking about what is possible in the Chicago real estate market, how do you grow, and what is going on in our market, and where is the opportunity. And talking about today, we have Mr. Joe Mueller, the founder of the Tanis Group, which is one of the largest REO brokerages. And the fun part I like about it is that this is a guy that is self-made and self-built. Always have a lot of respect for entrepreneurs who kind of start out with nothing, with the bootstrap and a dream, and go out there and make it happen in our marketplace. So having said that, in the last segment we were kind of talking about some of the opportunities in Chicago. And before I jump right into it, I want to give out the number because today for callers, for the first 20 callers, we will share with you the hottest list of deals, which is the probate deals. These are properties that are not on the MLS. They're not available in the MLS. They're not yet in the, they're not obviously an REO. These are properties where somebody kind of passed away, the family has an estate that they have to settle, and so these make for great opportunities for investors to go after. That list just came out, and we're sharing it with our audience to get your very own list for this month. Number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. Call in, it's 100% free, and we will send it out to you. So having said that, Joe, let's kind of jump right back into it. We were talking during the break, and I want to go and talk a little bit about from your perspective as wholesaling, flipping, and cash flow. But before we get there, in terms of, there are clearly some pockets that are hot pockets. So let's kind of start with, some markets go up at certain times, some markets go down. A market that you're in, you're based out of Dundee. What happened to the Dundee market, man? I mean, I'm just curious personally. I thought at one market, East-West Dundee, I don't know the difference between the two, but I know they're right below Carpentersville. But at one time, they were considered really hot markets. Suddenly, kind of the bottom fell out of them. How has that market come back? In general, talk about the Lake in the Hills, Algonquin, Carpentersville. What do you kind of see from your, as a broker's perspective in terms of number of sales?
Yeah, interesting point to bring up, because actually, I believe 3 years ago, Good Morning America named West Dundee as the #1 neighborhood in America to raise a family in.
Really?
Yeah, it was a big promotion they did. You know, the Dundees, the Carpentersville area, Lake in the Hills, Algonquin, they've all suffered through the downturn, like most of the northwest suburbs have. There's different pockets over there that have some better schools and school districts. Those have seen a lot more improvement in value in the last 2 years or so. But truly, the northern Illinois market didn't really seem to recover from the slump until 2012, 2013, when you really started to see some appreciation with some pretty big gains just in the last 12 to 24 months. I would say that right now, from what I've read, I believe it's Algonquin, Lake in the Hills are named in the top 10 suburbs to buy in Illinois right now.
Okay.
There's still plenty of opportunity to get in on the ground floor at some lower valued properties that have some built-in equity, and some good fix and flips opportunities as a result, because there's a lot of buyers that are flocking out to these areas. Easy access to expressways is always key. They've got some good schools in that area, and you know, that's where the buyers want to be. So whether you're flipping or whether you're going to buy and hold, you know, those components both equal, you know, a successful investment.
Okay, so let's just move a little bit northeast as we go towards what you said made a lot of sense. You know, you have a small town where there's that big ski thing, Fox River Grove. You know, that big, big ski jump.
Right.
And then you have Cary, and you have obviously Barrington coming in, and you have a lot of lines on whatever that Metro line is, right? And because of access, right, and because of schools, a lot of those towns on that Metro line for some reason have one town after the next, after the next, after the next, have good access to people going downtown, and have good schools. And that affects the market. Everything comes down when the market is down, obviously, but relatively places which are more desirable because of jobs, because of maybe because of transportation, because of schools, obviously tend to go up relatively quicker. Would that be a correct statement?
Completely correct, yes.
So, so you still feel that in that pocket of town, there's still lots of opportunity left.
Absolutely.
Okay.
On market and off market, yes.
On market and off market. Okay. And can people, since now you're a big radio celebrity, that you're on the
Right.
show, can people still pick up the phone and call you to reach out to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So how do they do that?
The best way to communicate with me is actually via email, but we do have an office number. They can call in if they're looking for a home in the area, or they're looking to list a house in the area, or they just need more information about the real estate that's available where our offices are located.
Okay. So they can go to Tanis, TANIS, groupllc.com. That's TANIS, Tanis, groupllc.com, or call into the show. We'll be happy to obviously make sure we provide you Joe's contact and number, and you can talk to him actually and work with some of the agents in terms of buying properties. So now let's kind of move down. Let's just, in that same trajectory, let's just move down. Let's just go towards, start kind of driving towards Naperville area, right? There is some mid pockets before we get to Naperville. If you're going down, let's say 59 or any one of those, what do you think about the West Chicagos of the world, the North Auroras of the world, all that pocket, the Bartlett and all that area? What is your thought process on that?
Well, if we're talking on the investing level, which I believe we are, then we need to think about property taxes. Illinois' got some pretty high property taxes, and some of those areas are indicative for also having some pretty high taxes. So if you're looking for a buy and hold investment, yeah, you might have some appreciation play, but it might not make so much sense on the cash flow side. The flipping opportunities, I believe, are there. West Chicago is good for flip opportunities that surround those surrounding areas. For buy and hold, I'd be looking at somewhere like Bolingbrook or maybe in Aurora as we move further south, because they've got some lower price points to acquire properties, and then the taxes aren't killers.
Makes sense. It makes a lot of good points. So if we move down south, kind of in that same line, approximately down to say Montgomery, some of the outlier areas, Romeoville, what else? Plainfield, and some of those areas like Plainfield had exploded in terms of. I mean, it had gone down the toilet so fast. You couldn't even find the bottom, but yet it's come back at a roaring pace. Any
Right.
thoughts on those areas? Because I see some great opportunities out in Montgomery. Some of the outlier areas, you can't get too far away from the traffic patterns because
Right.
access becomes tough. How about that area?
Well, yeah, that's the challenge right there. I mean, the access to an area like that, it kind of puts you a little further off the map, but a lot of new construction in that area, a lot of homes that were built in the upswing of the market that are still in great condition, that really took a hit when the crash came down, and they haven't fully recovered yet. So there's a lot of families flocking out there. There's good schools. There's great amenities out there. You've got other suburbs nearby that have nightlife like Naperville, things like that. So I mean, it's kind of the perfect combination for actually acquiring a home and either moving into it yourself or flipping or potentially buy and hold.
Okay, makes sense. So if we come back into the city, are you specifically buying anything in the city of Chicago limits?
No, I don't purchase anything within the actual city proper.
Okay, any reason behind that?
Yeah,
Personal reasons?
the reason you brought it before, I want to be able to touch and see and hold what I'm going to be buying.
Okay.
I want to be near to it enough where I can drive and actually view the property if I choose to. And the city of Chicago, though it does have high access points to it, it's difficult to mitigate through traffic, things like that. And the real answer is knowing the specific neighborhoods in the areas. I mean,
That is tough.
Streets change.
That is, yeah.
Street by street can be different. So to me, it's something that I can be just as successful out in the suburbs, and it's closer to me anyway.
Okay. We've kept out of the city for that reason as well, especially for rental properties, because plus I would rather be in a little bit more landlord friendly thing. I mean, I know Chicago is one of the biggest places in the country, obviously, to invest. I mean, it's the third largest, second largest, place to live in. So obviously, a lot of real estate, so a lot of opportunity. It's just that. What I've always felt is, and I think you probably would agree, is become a master of one area and then start going to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, but master that area. You can't just willy-nilly go and buy whatever the heck you want and then go, well, it didn't work out. This is not a game that we're playing. This is serious. This is something that you have to put study, thought, and a lot of effort into. So I want to kind of talk in the next segment. We're kind of coming to the close of the hour, close of half an hour. So in the next segment, I want to talk about a little bit in the South Side. I heard a podcast where you were kind of investing in the South Side, and my ideas have changed on that subject also over the last couple of years. At one point, I was not going there because I really simply didn't know the area. Really, that was the fact. So, having said that, today we're talking to Joe Mueller about how do you invest in the Chicagoland area. For anybody that's listening to a show today, you can call in and get your list of the newest probate deals that just came out for January. This is literally hot off the press, and it's only available to the first 20 callers. Number is 847-303-5011. That is 847-303-5011. So all you have to do is call in. It's 100% free, and we will send it out to you. Pick up the phone, call 847-303-5011. And guys, for the rest of you who've been thinking about acting one day, believe me, there is no someday or one day on the calendar. There's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There is no someday. So maybe today is the time to act. 847-303-5011.
Holmes on AM 560.
Hi, welcome back. This is Andrew Holmes, and you're listening to us on AM 560. And today we're talking to Joe Mueller from the Tanis Group.
No, Tanis.
Tanis. Man, you gotta pick an easier name. Like Old World Realty, something like that.
Yeah, right.
But
Maybe in my next life. We'll
next
see.
life, right. So, but what we're talking about is, I want to kind of go back because your specialty happens to be REO deals. You work with a lot of investors. I mean, that's kind of the thing that I love is that you work with a lot of investors. So before we go back into that, I want to give out the number. The number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. And for anybody that's listening to this show today, we have the newest probate list that is out for the month of January. It's right hot off the presses. So if you're going to go after deals that are not on the market, this is the list to get. And we're making it available to our listeners, first 20 callers, 100% free, 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. All you have to call is call in, give them your email, your phone number, and boom, we'll shoot it out to you. So having said that, Joe, let's kind of talk about, we were having a discussion about kind of around the area. We kind of took a bird's eye view of Chicago, starting up at Lake in the Hills, going down to Plainfield area, talking a little bit about the city. Let's talk a little bit about the south side of Chicago, and then the southern suburbs, because these are two completely different animals, which I didn't know that. I always thought it was south side was south side. I had no idea, right? Because I was just kind of familiar with this area. This is where I sold real estate at one time. You like southern suburbs, right?
Correct.
Personally. So what do you like about southern suburbs specifically, and what are the markers that you look for whenever you're investing personally?
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what I like about the south suburbs is I stay in Cook County, southern Cook County, so you're still commanding a higher rent for the same single family home that you could be, one county over could be getting considerably less because Cook County, just being closer to the city and being in that county, just commands higher cash flow. There are some southern suburbs that have lower taxes. So those two are the biggest markers right there. Is lower taxes and then the high rental amount.
So here's something that's interesting what you said, but you kind of went right over it real quick, so
Okay.
I want to point it out.
Let's point it
High
out.
rents make sense,
Yep.
right? But you said some suburbs have lower taxes.
Yes.
That some is a big word down in the south, especially, right?
Right.
It's because literally there are some suburbs over there that have super high rents. In fact, taxes. In fact, probably the highest, even higher than Kenilworth, relative to the price of the property.
Sure.
Can you talk about that a little bit as to how that affects your cash flow as an investor and how that affects long-term values also?
Absolutely. Obviously, when I'm investing, my markers, I'm looking for, I want to make at least $300 to $500 a month in positive cash flow.
Net cash flow.
Net cash flow.
Okay.
Correct. After all expenses are paid. So back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show, you need to study the market and the suburbs that you're going to be wanting to invest in, or the parts of the city that you want to invest in. Each property in some areas is going to have, the same house across the street could have double the taxes in Cook County. That's just the way it is here. So knowing your market, studying that market, and then taking that opportunity with that knowledge to investigate different areas is what I've been doing over the last 10 years or so to try to find, smaller pockets of different suburban communities that I think make sense for net cash flow.
Okay, and another thing that you're doing, which I want to kind of give a plug to, and this is something I think we will have a bunch of clients for you. Hopefully, you can find them properties, sell them some properties. Is you're doing kind of a turnkey model? I heard lately that you will buy the property, rehab it, and basically sell it as a turnkey to people, and you'll manage it for them as well. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, got it. And most of these properties are in the southern suburbs?
That is correct as well,
Okay,
yes.
good. So I want to ask you a question. This is a question I'm dying to ask. You, by most standards, would be considered a fairly successful guy. What I want to know is the secret to get rich in real estate without any work. I mean, you're laughing, man. I'm asking a very, very serious question.
Okay.
I've been trying to find the secret where I don't have to do any work, right? I just buy a property, just flip it for a quick profit, or just wholesale it for a quick profit, and I get rich overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a secret? Every guest that comes on, I always ask that question, that do you have this hidden secret?
Yeah.
And what would I have to do to learn this hidden secret where no work is required and just money just rolls in?
I would pay attention to the skies after rainfall, look for a rainbow, and see if you can find that pot of gold, because I'd never heard it before.
Okay.
It takes a lot of work.
That's
the secret. It takes a lot of work.
Every successful guy that I ask, right? Anybody who's successful, doesn't matter how much their net worth, they say, man, it's a lot of work. 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 The only people that seem to make money out of the blue, jump up and down on a boat with blondes that are 30 years younger than them, is the people on TV, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's for normal human beings, work, due diligence, a lot of persistence, frustrations, a little bit of up and down, that's called life. Would you agree with that?
I do agree, yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing the boat somewhere. So, having said that, for anybody that is listening to the segment of the show, if you'd like to get the latest list of the probate deals, the number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. And all you have to do is pick up the phone, call, and we will send it right out to you. There's absolutely no cost. Guys, if you're thinking about it, if you like the show, the best way to promote us, to help us, is tell a friend of yours about the show and have them tune in. Again, the number to get your hot list is 847-303-5011. Hi, welcome back. This is Andrew Holmes, and we're talking with Mr. Joe Mueller from the Tanis Group.
Yes.
Tanis.
You got
Tanis Group. I keep screwing up the name of the company. And they're based out of Dundee. And his guy, the reason we have him on is we wanted him to come and speak at the Naperville, Chicago RIA group today at the chapter meeting. But the reason for having really out is the goal of the show is to find local people that have local knowledge of investing in real estate. It's not just about talking about kind of arbitrarily what's going on. It's talking about the specifics and how you as the listener and us, how do we all grow in our businesses? Because our struggles, guys, I wish I could tell you that our struggles are any different or that there's a magic. There is a system. There are certain things you need to learn to invest in real estate. But believe me, our tenants once in a while don't pay rent, if you can believe that. Sometimes we have flips that don't necessarily always work the way we want them to work. The cities give us the same hard time they give you. So the struggles aren't any different. The only difference a lot of times is that in Joe's case, he has a business. So maybe one deal might not affect him as much as it might affect you if you're just starting out. But truly, the goal of the show is to do one thing and one thing only, is to bring ideas, bring people, and bring thoughts that are going to help you build your business. So having said that, for anybody that's listening to the show today, we're offering a hot list of probates, and they're the list that just came out for January, and it's available to our listeners for 100% free, but it's only to the first 20 callers. The number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. And the reason this is important is these are properties that are not available in general to the general public. The general public has no idea that these exist. Yet this is a list that you could market to and find some phenomenal deals. Having said that, let's kind of go back to Joe. So we were talking about kind of south side of the last segment, and you feel that the southern suburbs have a lot of opportunities. And the opportunity, is it based on because the prices haven't really come back yet in certain suburbs because they were hit harder than others? Would that be the reason why you said that?
Yeah, that's partially the reason. The other reason is to develop a business and grow it. You're gonna need inventory. So in the southern suburbs, it seems to be still some opportunities as far as a large amount of inventory at a good price point with the right markers to pick up these houses and get some good cash flow out of them.
Okay, got it. Makes perfect sense, and that's the reason we went there, right? We kind of started in the Roselle, Hoffman Estate, Schaumburg area. As much as I'd love to be able to buy some of the properties that we bought at the ridiculously good prices, they're just very onesies, twosies we can pick. But we can't have a business plan of buying 60 or 100 properties this year in Roselle and Schaumburg. It's not going to happen. Not at least at the numbers that we want.
Right, exactly.
And that's the biggest issue. Then we moved up to the Lake in the Hills, the Bristol Lake Market, Cary Market. We started buying over there. Then in the meantime, we were also buying West Chicago and that sort of market. Then we moved into Berwyn. Berwyn was a market that was new to me at the time because I knew these Northwest markets, but Berwyn was the next one. Then we started buying surrounding cities. Suddenly the prices start going up, so guess what we have to do? We have to move to the next part of things, and that's just how real estate is. So having said that, let me kind of switch the subject a little bit. You specifically do a lot of REO brokerage. Would you say that you guys are one of the largest REO brokers kind of in Illinois as such?
That's what I'd like to say, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys are kind of up there. The reason I'm asking that question is a lot of times people are like, well, I want to buy this REO property that the bank has listed and the broker just won't give it to me, right? So do you just pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or because the buyer's cute, you just give them the property? I mean, is that how it works? How does the process work? Because it's a mystery for a lot of people out there sometimes.
It's fairly similar to what you're going to see in any transaction, other than there's a financial institution at the other end that's calling the shots and making the decisions. A lot of the frustrations that buyers are dealing with, they come from multiple avenues as far as why there could be a problem and they were unable to obtain a property, but cash is king and the price is what wins. So, a lot of times if you're going to take a weekend boot camp and make 10 offers on 10 houses and expect to get all of them at a 50% discount, it's just not going to happen in this market, at least not in Chicago.
What I've found is, this is just, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, what I've found is that the more experience you have, and if you make reasonable offers, right? We all, for my own investing, for your investing, we all want stuff for nothing. Who doesn't, for God's sake?
Right.
But a lot of times, if you just start bombarding people with ridiculous numbers or start pulling back offers and attorney approval all the time, what's going to happen is you're going to tick off a lot of people.
Oh, yeah,
and then people are not going to want to do business with you. Would that be a correct statement?
Absolutely.
Because I find that all the time, that people will go to a weekend seminar, that, well, the guy told me that I can just put in offers, and then during attorney approval inspections, I can just basically say I want 20,000 off. I'm like, listen, very rarely, if there's a legitimate, really legitimate reason, maybe they might give you some sort of a discount, if you can show that in writing. But most of the times they're going to say no and move on. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, all the time.
Okay. So, because a lot of times people think that this is a gimmick, and they really have this misconception that, man, these greedy bankers, they're stupid, they don't understand what the reality is. No. They're the smart ones.
Yep.
They understand very well what the heck is going on. It's just that they're not local. So they're relying on your guidance as a broker, as they're representing them, and they're trying to make a financial decision that fits their portfolio. Might not make sense to you or I, but a lot of times they're sitting in New York, they're sitting in Texas, they're sitting wherever, so they don't have, if they were here, believe me, they could make a good decision. It's just that they don't have the luxury of doing that, so a lot of times they're second guessing what you're telling them. Would that be a correct is that what's going on in the industry?
Second guessing what I'm telling the bank, or
No,
buyers?
basically that what they're doing is you go out, you look at the property and you say, okay, the property's worth $100,000 all fixed up. Based on that, you recommend a price.
Correct.
Right? And then they have kind of whatever they have to follow to be able to dump the property. Sometimes they'll listen to you. Sometimes they'll say, no, we're going to price it for X amount. Sometimes it'll be lower. Sometimes it'll be artificially higher. And it is how it is. There is no massive agenda or plan or,
right. We've seen situations where we've recommended pricing at, let's say, $100,000 for properties that need an extensive amount of work that have a after repaired value of maybe $150,000 to $200,000, and they'll go ahead and list that property against our advice at $65,000 and get 30 offers in on it within 3 days. And we've seen the opposite end of the spectrum as well, where we're telling them that property's only worth $100,000, and they're insistent that they must list it at $150,000. Does that create opportunities on both sides? Absolutely. But in the end, it almost seems to auto-correct itself, because the right investor who's out there looking at these properties is going to offer reasonably, as you brought up before. They're not expecting to get things at a 50% discount. And the people that are in this doing it every day, like yourself, Andrew, you're going to know that to keep that deal flow coming in, that you're going to have to make offers that are going to be competitive. A 50% discounted offer is just not competitive unless there's really a strong justified reason, or maybe it's off market.
Okay, so you just kind of repeated, exactly what we try and tell people all the time. A lot of times they really feel they're like, well, why do you get so many offers accepted compared to me? I'm like, there's no reason really. I mean, there's, number one, we're not going to make an offer on something we know there's 40 offers on, unless I know something more than the rest 39 people. I'm just not going to go after it. That's not my business model. If I know the broker, I'm going to pick up the phone, try to make contact with them and say, hey, this is what it is, this is what I'm thinking. Are we somewhere within reason? They say, no, Andrew, it's not going to work. I'm not going to even make an offer. Why waste my time? And why waste their time?
Sure.
But if I feel I have a fairly strong property where I know the numbers really well, I've seen the property, whatever the case may be, if I feel that I have that 0.5% edge up, then I'm going to go after that property. And if I have 0.5%, guess what? We're going to go in with cash. We don't give the broker a hard time. We're going to have everything is going to be complete, and we're going to make it easy. So a lot of times, if I have my stuff together and you don't, I'm going to win. I mean, there's really no brain science behind it. Would that be the correct is that your approach typically?
I completely agree, and I think it really comes down to having the right team behind you if you're going to do something like that. You need to have a broker that understands the REO process and reads thoroughly what the instructions are to correctly submit an offer, because I guarantee you the guy that submits the 10 pieces of paper that's required by the bank is going to be looked at more thoroughly than the guy who just submits a couple-page offer and doesn't include a proof of funds or something to that effect. It's very simple. So read the instructions, act professional, and you can see positive results.
Makes sense, because I think what a lot of times, another thing I want to kind of bring up, which is a lot of times people feel that they'll look at the numbers on things that we get, right? They'll look at the successes, they'll look at the big wins. They don't look at the headache, they don't look at the stress, they don't look at the sleepless nights, they don't look at what we have to go through to have an end result. I mean, you look at somebody who's in phenomenal shape, we all look at it and go, wow, I wish I was in that particular condition. And somebody the other day, was a funny thing. I was at some sort of a concert, a famous guy, Yo-Yo Ma, one of those kind of things, and there was a professional pianist sitting next to me. The lady right next to her said, what I would give to be able to play the cello like him. She's like, she looked at him very kind of in a way that as if she was offended, and goes, no, you wouldn't. She said, what do you mean? That's something really I want to do. She said, well, why aren't you doing it? Are you going to spend the 10,000 hours to become the professional that he is? And I think that's what it is a lot of times, that we all have passions. We all think, oh my God, we want to do this, and we want to do this so badly. Yet life, I truly feel, is going to demand a price. And it's going to demand a different price out of you than out of me, but it will demand a price. It'll have a lot of tears, a lot of lost hair or gray hair if you're a man. If you're a woman, it might be weight gain. There's just a price you're going to have to pay, because I have never been able to find an easy way. I mean,
right.
If you find one, Joe Man, I would really appreciate it. I'd be happy to package it and sell it for you. I mean, really. Yeah. But I don't really think that there is a secret. There are systems that can be followed, but there is no secret.
Well, I think, just a comment on what you said, you have to run your investing like a business. You can't wake up one Saturday morning and decide to go look at some houses and then not think about it again for another 2 weeks. I mean, if you do, that's great, and if it's a hobby to you, that's great, but then don't expect the same success and returns that somebody like you is going to see.
Right.
Because every day you should have an agenda. Every day you're running your real estate investing like a business, and you've got goals, you've got plans. So it kind of goes back to the original segment we discussed, which is, what's your end goal? What are you trying to accomplish, and then work towards that goal every single day.
Makes perfect sense, and I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times, people will come to us all the time and say, something, but Andrew, you don't understand. right? You don't understand because this is all you do 24/7. This is all you think. You guys all go out to dinner or together. This is what you talk about. You guys wake up. This is what you talk about. I'm like, guys, listen. For me now, it's become a lifestyle, right? Today, it wasn't always that way, right? People who are in grade, they're gym rats. That's what they do. That's
Right.
what they think about. That's what they eat. That's who they hang out with. And I'm like, this is what we do. We have created our kind of own little bubble that we live with it. Right, wrong, indifferent. That's what it is. And if you really want to be successful at anything, you have to take that business to that level. And just because if you have a normal job, great for you. But nobody's going to feel bad for you because you don't do the extra. And if you're not going to do the extra, guess what it is? You're going to be exactly where you are. You know, somebody one day made a very profound statement that I've never forgot. They said, you know, Andrew, if you just work from 9 to 5, that will make a living. You have to work from 5 to 9, which is the extra hours to create a lifestyle. And that's really what it all boils down to. So, having said that, for everybody that is listening to the show today, you can call in and get your hot list that we're offering. It's the newest hot list that we have out for probates, and that is only available to the first 20 callers. The number is 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011. Call in and get your very own hot list. So having said that, we're kind of in the final 3 minutes of the show, Joe. So what, any points, anything, wisdom that you would like to impart to people that are like, oh my God, I really want to do this. What do I do next? Where is the place to start? What do they do?
I would say, surround yourself with those that you want to emulate. If you find someone in your market, whether this be in Chicago or Cleveland, Ohio, that is successful in real estate investing or in a buy and hold or flipping business, talk to them, take them out to lunch, buy them a cup of coffee, find out where their head's at, and listen to their story. A lot of investors are more than willing to sit down, including REO brokers, though we might be hard to contact sometimes. Once you contact us, I mean, I've never had anybody offer to take me out for a cup of coffee on the REO broker side. On the investing side, I'm networking all the time. So the same statement holds true. Network, talk to people that are in the business, and you're going to see success if you're surrounding yourself with people that are also successful the way you want to be.
Makes sense. Great thing. Anything on the book side you would recommend to people to read? What is the place to start?
Oh, Amazon, but I buy everything off Amazon. I'm an Amazon junkie.
Right. I hear you're an avid reader.
I am, yeah.
Okay.
I always am reading and referencing back to at least once a year. I'm reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I love that book, and it's the same concept I just brought up earlier. Currently reading Managing Rental Properties by Brandon Turner off of Bigger Pockets, for anyone who's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
That's all a great reference book. And even though I might have 60 or 70% of that knowledge already in my brain, I always find little tidbits out of every book that I read, and that's why I'm always reading. Yes.
Man, you're kidding me. After 15 years, you should know it all.
Yeah.
Right? You should.
I'm still looking for that rainbow. That's
right. You should. No, but it's constant, and I'm glad you said that because it's really about constant growth. You can never. The day you think you know it all, that day you might as well wrap up and jump. Find a big tall
Right.
building and just jump. Right? Because that day it's over. Guys, it's about constant growth, constant improvement, and that's really what human beings are for. And having said that, as we wrap up the show, I'd like to thank Joe very much. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, and it's always a treat to have somebody who's taken the bull by the horn and kind of run with it. For everybody that's listening to the show today, to get your very own hot list of the latest probates that are coming out, the number is 847-303-5011. Again, that's 847-303-5011. Call in, get your hot list. It's 100% free, but it's only available to the next 20 callers. 847-303-5011. That's 847-303-5011.